How we doing, everyone? How we doing here from Atlas Corp? Here to talk about our latest DAO grant project, the DAO-owned data aggregation layer built for Decentraland. So the motivation behind this was um, we wanted to make a data source available that would contain all of the sort of active users, information that's readily obtained from the Catalyst node. However, if everybody were to hit the Catalyst node all the time for this data for their own purposes, whether that's applications or in-scene gating of functionality, it would kind of cause this undue burden on the nodes, which are really there for people to play on, not for applications to gather data. So we've created some architecture that can be deployed by anybody, but we are running a common instance on the behalf of the entire Decentraland ecosystem to collect that data and reserve it up to people independent of the Catalyst node, such that you can use this service for your applications or for anything that's sort of non-playable. Really quick to go through the architecture, you can find it on our public GitHub repo here, but we built this as a series of microservices. Two of which are completely open source. So the first one is DAO Data Collect. That's a project that you can install locally. You can run the install script, and it will go to the blockchain, figure out all of the current production Catalyst nodes, and create one data collector service for each of them. And we do encourage people to run this kind of redundantly. There is a follower flag that listens to the same database and picks up if, for whatever reason, the first data collection series of nodes goes offline. And that's because we are collecting data points at 20-second granularity, and we want to not miss any data points. So we are currently running this in duplicate. We have two different regions hosting this code, so if one were to go down for any kind of reason, the other one would pick up where it left off. In addition, we also make available the archive process, which will run daily and take data out of the database, or at least cache 1 day's worth of data as a tar file and push that to an S3 archive. You can use this archive today to pull down your own copy and replicate the database that's running on cloud. And eventually this will be used to kind of maintain low-cost environments, because eventually the data is going to get quite large and we'll need to trim it down in order to keep it performant. But to date, we have not deleted any data since, I believe, July of last year. So in addition to those, that was the kind of the main purpose of the application of the grant project, to have this architecture open and available. You can run this today. In addition, if everyone were to run this, we'd be right back where we started with putting an undue load on all of the 11 Catalyst nodes. But ultimately, we can't be the only maintainers of this software. So this architecture was built and effectively gifted to the DAO. You can look at some of the queries on this redoc documentation page, so you can see, how to get the archive, how to get the islands data, and how to get some of the derived data that we're supporting. The derived data was not in the initial scope of this grant, but given some of the back and forth with some publications at the end of last year debating about how many daily active users there are in Decentraland, we thought it was important to add this to this stack. So I think the one that I want to point out, if the go-to would be this /postman query, where if you do this, you'll get a JSON file that can then be imported into Postman, and then you can have a bunch of samples on your desktop ready to go. So we can take a look at some of these queries. We can hit, for example, /island /the realm name, and what that will do is that will return, the exact same data that you would get if you hit the particular realm, Catalyst realm, directly. However, we do offer consolidated queries where you can hit /islands, and that delivers all of the most recent Catalyst node data. So that way you don't have to make, let's say, 11 separate queries. You could just do it once. We could take a look at, some of the cache data that we provide, such as daily active users. This is just a very simple query where we're filtering on effectively October of last year, but you can change these parameters as you see fit. And we're also offering some practical use cases, such as signed fetch, for folks doing things in world and Decentraland that need to vet to see if someone is in world. You could do things like add, a tolerance to how close to this scene do you actually need to be, and this is measured in parcels. So, feel free to look over all of this content. All of it is public and available. We at Atlas Corp are always interested in getting feedback on stuff that we deliver for the community. Happy to, engage anyone if they need help understanding what this does, getting up and running with their application, or just generally want to, riff about new features or new functionality that might be added in the future. Our door is figuratively and literally always open.